Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to understand how we are going to identify the elements using CSS selectors. Okay, so what we are going to do is you create a new class, example CSS Selector as a locator. Click on this and then, as I told you earlier, just to take the basic program to invoke the URL. Go here and remove the unnecessary line. And here I'm going to take this URL, that is my Facebook Guru 99 sample website. I'm just giving that. So CSS selector, using CSS selector, how are we going to identify the element? Let's say, let me open the application under test, that is AUT. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to identify this element. Right click, inspect, and then you will be identifying this element. See here, generally you know the name and ID property. That's the reason you might use driver dot find element by dot the CSS selector. What you have to do is you need to understand couple of methods. So there are multiple ways you can identify attribute, tag and class and attribute. When I say tag, if you see for this particular element, so my tag is input is my tag. What is that ID? You have the ID value as email. So tag and ID. So when I say tag hash ID, so go and see in this application, you have the tag as input and the ID value is email. So that is what we are going to make use and identify the element, that is password. What we are going to do? We are going to take input as the tag. Any element, any of the properties, whatever you're taking, it should be always unique. Then only you will be able to identify the elements. Now I'm going to write the code using that. Driver dot find element by dot CSS selector. So we are not using name, we are not using ID. We are going to make use of this and then input, that is my tag hash email for the first one, that is the email box dot send keys and then write abc@gmail.com. So same thing, if you wanted to do it for password, how we are going to do that? We already know. Same thing, whatever you have here, copy and then paste it. So instead of email, it should be PASS. Now just have a look at the application and see it is ID is PASS and the tag is input. Now close this application and see what is going to happen. So now if I run this program, it will invoke using the locator CSS selector. Just see how it is going to work. So whenever there is no property like ID or name or any of the properties, if you are looking for, you have various methods to identify the elements. So this is one more method where you will be using CSS selector. So here you have input tag and then the ID, that is the property value is email. So that is one way of identifying it. And once that is done, so hope you understand this tag and ID method. You can make use of this method for any element and you can identify that. The next one is tag and class. So when I say tag and class, if you go and look at the same application, identify the element, right click, inspect, click here and select the identify the element. And if you see, the element name is class is input text. So tag is input and class is input text. But I just wanted to show you the other element, that is password also. What is the class? See, password also having input and class also input text. So if we are taking this kind of property, you will not be able to identify the element, because there are two elements of same category, input and then the class as input text. These two elements are recognized with the same property. That's the reason whenever you're trying to identify the elements, you have to make sure that you use unique property of the elements. As I told you in our previous session, it will identify the first element when you write the when there are multiple elements matching, but it will recognize the first element. Let me write the program for this. If I'm going to make, I'm going to comment this one, driver dot find element here by dot CSS selector. You are going to make use of input text. Input is your tag and class is your input text. So input, where is that? Let me show you one more time. Input is your class name, your tag name, and input text is your text name. Go to that, and instead of email, you will be writing input text. You need to remember this syntax. So some people might expect you to write in the interview. Okay, so you can understand for which element what kind of syntax you have to write. See here, the syntax has been given here, so you should make sure that you understand this syntax properly. Now once you understand that, if you run this program, see what is going to happen. It will launch the application and it will enter the first element, that is your email ID, in the first box. So as I told you, if I have to do it using the same kind of class property, that is input text, for the password, I will not be able to do, because these two elements are having same category. That's the reason you have another method which is used for class, and then you will have the tag class, the tag and class and attribute value. So if you use this method, you will be able to identify that. So if I have to make use of the class and understand the password box, now what I am going to see. Okay, let's see. Go here, right click, inspect, inspect, and then password. See here, input text is here. You are having tab index is equal to 2. So now what I am going to do is, I am going to take the same kind of program, and but the syntax is this way, tag dot css, and then this. Let me take this. So go to this. I'll put it here. So my tag is input, class is input text, and then attribute. What is the attribute we are having? You are having tab index. Use your attribute, and the value is 2. Now in that case, it will enter the value in the password field. So if I have to enter the value in the first one, then I will be giving it as 1. Let me try with first 2, and then I'll run it for the other one. I'm running the program. Let me close this also. It should enter the value in the password field. So this is how you will be making use of the CSS selectors. This is another way of writing or identifying the elements in the application. So in your interview, they might ask you to write either ID or name or link text, partial link text, class, or CSS selector, or XPath also. We are going to see XPath later. See, now I don't see the text got entered here. Just see there is an error. Okay, let me fix this. Tab index is equal to 2. Let me put it in the single quotes. I guess we have to put it in single quotes. You should not remember when you are giving this. sometimes if we miss a single comma or something also, then it may not be able to recognize the element. So let's try this. Once you understand this, then we will move on to the next one. So if at all it is not working, then we have to identify where is the error and how we are going to fix that. That is what we are going to see now. Yep, it got identified here. See, so this way you will be able to recognize. Now if I have to give it in the first one, you give it as 1, because if you see tab index is 1. So let me close everything and then run the program. I'm just closing all others and then trying to enter this in the first one, RERYE. So just ensure that you have closed everything on the desktop and then run the program. So it should enter the text RERYE in the email field. This is how you will be able to recognize the elements using the CSS selectors. See, the text got entered here. So now what we have seen tag and ID method, tag and class, and then tag and class, and then attribute and its value. You can try with various examples. Okay, so you can give it in quotes or you can give it normally also, it should work. Okay, so you don't need to worry about having it in the quotes, but it will work. Okay, both the ways you can try. So let me show you without quotes also whether it is working fine or not. I'm just closing the window and then trying again. It should enter the value in the email field. So you may get a question like in development of locators we use name and ID, and then we will go with XPaths. Most of the cases we will be working with only with XPaths. So we don't generally make use of all this, but in the interview point of view, some people may expect you to write the script using these CSS selectors or other elements also. Okay, I think this is not working with when you remove the single quotes. So but remember guys, you have to ensure, okay, just remember you have to give the value in the single quotes. So just keep a note of it. So we no need to mug up the things. If you practice multiple times, then you will remember. Okay, so that's the reason I am also just doing it in a trial and error methods. Tab index is equal to 1, you have to give it in the single quotes, then only it will work. Okay, just see, now I have changed it and it should work. So this way you will be able to identify with the CSS selectors with various methods, whatever we have seen. See, now it entered. So now the last one is using CSS tag and attribute is equal to value. Whatever the attribute we are going to take and what is the value we are going to take. So let me take the same example, and then if I try to inspect the element and then just select this and then see here, tag is input and the attribute name is equal to name is equal to email, the value ID is equal to email. You can take any of these two. So now what I am going to do is I am going to take your name is equal to email, we are going to take. So I'm just changing this entire thing. Give a square bracket, name is equal to email. Okay, so now You write it as abc@gmail.com. Whatever you wanted to write, you can write, and then close this window, run the program and see what is going to happen. So remember, when you are writing it, so ensure you are giving the right syntax and then run the program. You have to put it in the single quotes, so it may throw an error, but we'll see. Yeah, it got entered. But generally, if you put it as password, we'll see. If I give it as password, whether it is entering into the password box also, we'll see. So the name is equal to PASS. So let me try running it as pass. Name is equal to PASS. Now run the program and see. It should open the application and enter the value in the password field. These are also different ways of identifying the elements and using the CSS selectors. See, it got entered here. So let me see if I give single quotes whether it is getting identified or not. And then I am closing this and then running again. So remember one point, when you are giving the indexes, you have to tab index where you have to put it in the single quotes, and now we will see whether it is allowing or not. Okay, so these are all the some of the simple things where your interviewer may touch upon whether you really work with these elements or not. See, both the places it worked. So that's the reason. So sometimes it allows and sometimes it does not allow. So you no need to mug up the things. That only thing is you have to practice these things multiple times with various applications. Not only with this application, whatever I am showing, you can practice all these things with the different applications.